Tonight, it is as though the silly season is back but bereft of any change. The political class has been in action, from new titles such as the Hustler's Clerk to unprintable words. The political warm-up sees the ruling Jubilee Party's members melting in the middle. Tonight, we make sense of the country's politics and corruption. This is Pundits Night. I'm Abu Bakr Abdullahi, and welcome to the program. As always, you as the viewer, your opinion counts and matters. Talk to us. Use the hashtag Pundits Night. Send us a message on 22047. And quite a number of your feedback is already coming in. And Nixon Buru says, Kutoka Kindaruma says, I'm really wondering whether there is a law prohibiting general elections campaign before the appropriate time. Ngugi from Ruai says, every person has a right to seek any post in Kenya because it belongs to all of us. We are the voters, and now our eyes are opened than before. Talk to us. The hashtag is Pundits Night. Send us a message on 22047. Let's make sense of the politics of the country together. Let's bring in our first guest for this discussion. Of course, as earlier promised, Herman Manyora, our residential analyst, will be joining us shortly. We also have Nandi Senator Samson Cherargei. But I understand we have Evans Wafula, who is a political analyst and joins us now on the broadcast. Evans, good evening, and thank you for making time for us tonight.
Thank you.
Good evening to you.
All right, I understand we have our residential analyst, Herman Manyora, now, whom I can speak to. Herman, good evening. How are you doing?
Good evening to you. Good evening to you. I'm fantastic. I am fantastic.
It seems as though I can't hear what Herman is saying. Talk to us, you as a viewer. The hashtag is Pundits Night. Herman, can you hear me?
Me, I can hear you loud and clear. You can't hear me?
Yes, I can, Herman. Last week we talked of corruption and fighting corruption in this country. I want us to still touch on it without dwelling too much on it. An exercise in futility or an exercise taking shape? Is the war on corruption either of the two?
It depends on how you want to look at it. There are those who look at it from a very total perspective, meaning they must see really action. But there are those who say, well, so long as there are noticeable steps, we appreciate. If you belong to the latter category, then you'll say that the government is moving. President Uhuru has been moving from 2015, from the time he emerged in parliament with that infamous list of people he has to step down. Finally, some ministers lost their job, and many things have happened. He has changed and brought new faces to key places, DPP, Nurhajin.
All right, Herman, you say there's a lot,
and so forth.
Herman, you say there's a lot that has happened, but until Kenyans see high-level convictions, they won't be convinced that this matters, won't they?
That's why I'm saying there are those who want to believe something is happening if the plate is full, if the cup is full. But there are those who appreciate even a quarter a cup, a quarter full. You know what I'm saying? For those who want to see a full plate, nothing is going on. They want to see convictions, they want to see blood, they want to see big fish, they want mbuta, not omena. So they are justified to think so. But there are also those who believe at least something is being done. You can mention 1, 2, 3 that Uhuru has done that his predecessors did not do. That's what I mean.
All right, Herman, you say they are justified to see it as though there is something that is happening. But is it not the case that Kenyans should expect convictions as the end game to any corruption scandal? I mean, billions of monies is being lost.
Surely we are at a stage as a country where unless we deal with corruption, it will deal with us. And it will deal with us in a severe manner. It will deal with us in a way we will regret ever allowing ourselves to get where we are. So it is true that really, although something's being done, we ought to do things that will convince all of us that actually those responsible for these are facing the law. If they continue doing what they are doing and being taken to court, the few who end up in court get the best lawyers who speak the best English, put on the best suits, then surely, as it has happened elsewhere, all of us will be the loser. We will lose, because even those who think they are clever and they can hire the best lawyers, society gets to a point when they can take it no more. And then we have what we call citizen impeachment. We don't want to get there. We don't want to get anywhere where a revolution is in the air. But sure enough, if we don't do something, and the president has said as much, if we don't fight this dragon, if we don't slay the dragon of corruption, which is actually just theft, as I've said, then we are inviting a revolution in this country, which is not good.
All right, Herman, let me bring in Evans to the discussion. We are talking of corruption and the fight and fighting corruption in this country. Evans, in your own view, is it an exercise in futility or an exercise that can be accomplished?
You know, I've always have a lot of respect for Herman. And one of the things is that this exercise is not supposed to be academic, and that's one of the things I've maintained. The institutionalization of corruption in this country, where corruption has become an enterprise, is very evident and very obvious. Virtually every sector in this government or in this country, there is the footprints of corruption. There is nowhere you will go in this government where you will not find an element of any sort of, whether it's low level, middle level, or high level corruption. So I think what is most important for us to look at as a country is to borrow examples from other countries. Look, for example, a country like Rwanda, where the president of Rwanda had to jail his own brother because of being implicated in corruption. So I think we need to actually be able to understand that the corruption does not only threaten the social fabric of our country, but is also a threat to national security. I think we have taken corruption, which has actually involved as an enterprise, and that's why we have had the other time the president talking about, people talking about the COVID millionaires. It's an enterprise, and how you break an enterprise to the level of what we're experiencing now is by taking big people or people implicated to be held accountable. So we are fighting corruption from an academic point of view.
All right, Evans, let me interject at that point. When you say it is an enterprise, what exactly do you mean?
People are enriching themselves from corruption. There are people, look at NYS, look at now COVID, look at what was about you remember the forensic lab? Look at Goldenberg. Corruption is an enterprise. And I think everybody, even now, we have millionaires who have actually been born out of corruption. And some of them have ended up in government and they have taken government siege. I will tell you today that there's a number of people who got into politics through corruption, where they can also even buy votes. And they even how they got there, their money actually came from corruption. There are many, it's evident. Corruption is everywhere in this sector, whether you talk about on the high level, on the low level, even when you want to get a job, you must bribe. The policemen, the low level. You remember one thing that I will also point out is that during the coming of the NAC government, you remember we had things like citizen arrest. I remember an incident where citizens arrested a policeman and handed him over to other policemen because he was asking for a bribe. I think we need to find a situation whereby citizens also must play a role. We should arrest these people who we feel they are corrupt. We should not allow them, we should not let them to go through a process that we know even the process itself is suspect. If we know somebody is corrupt, we can arrest that person. It is within the law. Citizens can be able to arrest people that we believe are corrupt.
Evans, according to PricewaterhouseCoopers report, 1 in every 3 companies in this country say they have experienced fraud in procurement during the past 2 years. If you are to arrest all these people, you'll be arresting 1 in every 3, which is a third of the people. It seems it's more than a culture.
I think the civil society has, I mean, the community, the society has a role to play. When we talk about everybody, whether it's government, whether it's the public, have a role. If we know people who are corrupt, we should also, as citizens, start to arrest those people. If you know it's a governor, we can arrest that governor. If we know it's an MCA, it's a senator, it's a public official, and we know that person has stolen our money, we should be allowed as citizens. The law allows us to institute citizen arrest. We should arrest these people and take these people for due process. The problem is that our institutions that have been formed to deal with corruption, they're inept. They are inept. They are not able to deal with these issues. Because look, for example, ESCC. The number of cases that ESCC has ever prosecuted successfully, and the word successfully, it's not just a matter of taking people to court to appear, where convictions have taken place. Considering the number of money that has been put in that institution, it is just a joke. Because if you see, since the enactment of this institution, up to the number of people who have been convicted of corruption, it's just like something that we can never pride of. We want
all right, Evans, you have made your point. Let me bring back Herman to the discussion, but nonetheless, tweak your response in as far as the answer to the question I asked is concerned. Herman, should then people take it as a citizenry action to arrest those whom they think have stolen the public money?
You know, citizen arrest, unless it means a revolution. Let's surely, I have a clip, I think that was on some TV station. It's doing the rounds after many years again, which says, you cannot be a billionaire in this country unless you have stolen from the public. Because like you say, Abu Bakari, almost every successful person in this country, you can trace their success to theft of public property. So are you going to arrest everybody? The jails will not even be enough. The police stations will not be enough. This is why I've always argued, let's get to a point when we say from now onwards, nobody will steal.
But Herman, let me interject you at that point. The rationale to your answer is quite contradictory. You say everyone who is wealthy in this country can be traced back to theft?
I think basically almost everybody. Look here, I was talking...
But there are people who have made their money, there are people who have made their, be it their millions or billions through genuine ways.
Many people have talked to me privately and we have argued. But finally, they agree I'm right. You say you did business, but you did business with government. You supplied things to government worth 80 billion, and you were paid 80 billion. But among those things was a pen whose value in the shop is 20 shillings, but you are selling it at 80 bob. My friend, all these people are thieves. They will agree. So the idea is, what Wafula is saying is something near a revolution, an overhaul. But I'm saying that may not be possible for now. Neither would it actually be advisable. Even countries which you have gone there, few have done so successfully. What I'm saying is, let us make sure corruption or theft is not possible. And those who, even after that, still, let it be something so painful. Let's make corruption so bad that if you drove home a Mercedes-Benz, let your wife or your husband ask you, darling, where did you get this? Let your son tell you, Dad, this is a beautiful car, but where did you get it? We don't want to go through the shame so and so's parents went through. So when we get that way, we will be moving somewhere. And that's why if you look at ESCC, the anti-corruption body, the education part of it is more than even the arrest and all those kind of things. So number one, we make corruption difficult. Number two, we make people return what they have stolen. We make it easy for people to return instead of being prosecuted.
Why
So
not?
let's
Why
get
not
back
jail?
most of the public property.
Haman, if they are returning what they stole or what is alleged to have been stolen, why not jail them?
No, I'm
In
saying
fact, I would just,
they are all-
I would honestly like to point this one point is that if you know a governor who has stolen money and built a hotel, why should citizens not take that hotel and make it a hospital?
But that's okay, except that you will have to chase everybody out of Lavington. You chase everybody out of Karen.
But Evans, how do you establish?
friend,
Evans, still on that note, how do you establish that this infrastructure or this building was built using monies that were stolen from the public coffers?
Let's be very obvious. I mean, let's be very honest with ourselves in this case. If you are a governor within the first term, maybe let's say within 3 years, you've built a hotel, and we know your salary, we know where you've come from, and you'll be able to build out, you cannot account. And then there's evidence that you've actually awarded contracts to cronies and relatives and people close to you. And there are many examples. There are many examples. And I will be very honest, and we are not going to be prejudiced to what matters that are in court. We know, for example, the case of Kiambu, where the governor has bought a whole building and converted it into a hotel, yet he has a corruption case. Let's be very honest to ourselves. What is happening? The people of Kiambu can be allowed to seize this property using the due process and make it viable for the county. And that is the only way you can say that you are going to deal with people who are enriching themselves from proceeds of corruption. But if you don't do that, all this is academic.
Haman, you want to interject, Evans?
Yeah, Wafula, you know, if you've read revolutions, including the famous one, the French Revolution, it can get very ugly. Well, then where will it stop? After that hotel that belongs to Waititu, where will it stop? And I've told you, if we were to be very, just looking at things in a very casual manner, without even being experts, we will point at all this property as stolen property. It is obvious. That's why I'm saying, where will you stop and where will you start? Once you have repossessed that hotel that belongs to Waititu, and it may be Ruto's Weston, and then another one, and another, where will you stop? It will go right up to the village. Even the villagers will say, the house I put up because I was a principal of our school, I stole from there. Maybe I took a loan from my circle. So it will be ugly. That's what I'm saying. It will be ugly. That's why many revolutions sometimes, like Orengo said, they would even eat their own children. Sometimes they don't succeed because of lack of order. You get it? So what I'm saying, let's make corruption difficult. Let's make it difficult to steal public money.
All right, Aman, we'll come to your argument of making corruption difficult and how to make it that difficult. Nonetheless, Evans, Haman initially said that for you to be a billionaire in this country, and this is a clip credited to one of the media houses, breakfast show, I suppose, 2 years ago, if I'm not wrong, in which Haman says and still holds that view that for you to be a billionaire in this country, you must have stolen. That is a smack on the face for any entrepreneur who intends to be a billionaire or even is a billionaire in this country, isn't it?
I think directly or indirectly, I agree with Manyora is because some of these billionaires have those connections, indirect connections. They are even sometimes used as proxy. But look at this question, the politicization of corruption. We have politicized corruption so much that when somebody is implicated in corruption, it becomes a political question. And that is how it's becoming difficult to deal with corruption. I'm telling you today, if you're implicated in the COVID-19 millionaires, you will actually immediately politicize. Look at the names that we are seeing. Look at the way they are appearing, with the media giving them a lot of publicity and making them look like they're the next saints. And I can tell you, corruption
just for purposes of fairness, the media has also questioned those who are alleged to have stolen public funds. I doubt if there is a media in this country that has made them look like saints, as you say.
But the way you receive them, the way somebody comes from his car is even received like a presidential candidate. And this is somebody who has been implicated. I think we also need to know and see what is our limits. Some of these people don't need, in fact, our children are seeing these people on television and wondering, are they celebrities? They have been made to look like they are so special and so important, yet somebody is just appearing before is going to be grilled or to be questioned, but the entire media is there trying to make this person look like he's a star. I think it's important that these people are actually being put at the right place where they belong. I think corruption demeans, and this is my phrase, corruption demeans human rights, and it undermines the rule of law. And that is what we are witnessing in this country, that a lot of people are suffering because they cannot get medicine, their kids cannot go to proper schools, and the rule of law has been demeaned because corruption has also entrenched itself in our judicial system. And there is no way you will fight corruption when it has already gotten its head in the judicial system. How many times have we had cases where judges have been given money or bribed? We have evidence. So the fact that corruption in this country undermines human rights, demeans the rule of law, there is no way, and then I've had my colleague Manuela saying, there is no way we are going to deal with corruption until we see big people in prison.
Evans, often in this discussion on corruption and the fight against corruption in this country, you have used a phrase that I was going to use. There is often that of we have evidence. But not unless this evidence is often adduced in a court of law, it will just be evidence by word of mouth, isn't it? The courts will need more to substantiate any case presented in front of it.
Look at what is happening in a country like Mali, for example, where the president is implicated in plundering of resources and people close to the president being implicated in corruption. What's happened? And it's a responsibility that every citizen understands that corruption also undermines democracy. Our democratic system is also being undermined because of corruption. Let's not talk about political party independence. Even politics in this country is also entrenched in corruption. People bribe to get nominations. People pay money to be nominated. So corruption is really part of our it has threatened our social fabric. As a country, we need to take responsibility. People even sometimes you want to meet somebody for an appointment. There are people you have to pay to see someone. This is how ugly and that is how it stinks. So we should not talk we not give it another name. Corruption is deeply rooted in our social fabric. It threatens human rights. It undermines the rule of law. It's a threat to national security. It even threatens our economy. So I think corruption is and you see, for us to deal with corruption is that the penalty of corruption should be very harsh, that it should amount to something close to death sentence. We should not try people on corruption and give them bail. When people have died in hospital because they cannot be able to afford medicine, they cannot get equipment in hospital because somebody has looted that money. You have actually committed murder.
Evans, for purposes of fairness, even though the law allows that such offenses can be bailed.
And that's why corrupt people and the enterprise is flourishing under that environment. People who are, let me tell you, it's a conspiracy. This is like, and I remember the former Chief Justice saying that Kenya is a bandit economy. It's a bandit economy to the extent that the criminal and the corrupt enterprise has found itself fit to exist in such an environment. This is what happens in El Capone. This is what happens in the mafia states. That there are people who, at the end of the day, I will tell you and you will see it happening, if we don't deal with corruption, the corrupt elements will even determine our electoral processes. They will even determine who becomes the president of this country because they have the corrupt machinery to determine what happens next. So
Evans will talk of the trickle-down effect in as far as corruption is concerned, but nonetheless, Herman, you earlier on alluded to making it difficult for anyone to steal. How then is that possible?
It must be a systems approach to the whole thing. It must begin first with how we seal the loopholes. People steal because of many reasons. One, because it's easy to steal. So you seal the loopholes. For example, if I was the president of this country, I would disband the procurement people. Go home, all of you. There will be nothing like procurement. If Abu Bakr, you are in charge of a station somewhere and you want to buy a television, there is no use of going through the procurement system, which is time consuming, and which after 6 months you will procure a television that I could buy in my house with 40,000, you will get it for 300. Yet you have gone through the procurement process. So I'll disband it and just tell you, go and buy a TV. But I will have set a system of all the things needed by government offices. So that if you want a car, you go to Toyota Kenya. And Toyota Kenya will not make the car more expensive, because the price they give it to the government must correspond to the price they have sold the same units in the past 3 months. And they correspond to taxes paid. So nobody, that's just an example that I make it so difficult for you to steal public money. But even then, even after making that, there will be those who will steal. You make it so painful, like I said, that even your friends will not want to dine and wine with you. You make it so difficult. Then we go to the prosecution. You go to the judiciary. We must overhaul our judicial system and approach to justice. Everybody is assumed innocent. Everybody has the best lawyers. Adjournment after adjournment.
Haman, the judiciary has been in the forefront, denying, distancing itself from the phrase of it being the weak link. I remember the Chief Justice saying the judiciary will prosecute what has been brought forth as evidence, and it will not act on allegations. I'm advocating for change of that approach to justice, where the bench just sits there, listening to people, the adversarial system, where the judge has no ears, he has no eyes. Even if he knows you have messed, even if the prosecutor is messing, making blunders, the judge is just there. As the other lawyer makes mincemeat of the prosecutor, maybe they are even conniving. We want to change our system of trying, our system of justice, where we have an active bench. You get what I'm saying? Somewhere between what we have and what other countries have, so that the judge does not just sit there. We want even to have people clerking cases. When cases come in, they are clerked. Let me give you an example of what happened in 2013 in the Raila versus Uhuru and Kinaruto. Raila won. The Chief Justice, Willy Mutunga, on his volition, asked the IBC to bring certain documents. He asked them, bring certain documents. You get it? Had it not been the big bundle which ODM introduced late into the case, and it was too big and it was not allowed, working together with what those forms Mutunga had asked the IBC to produce, my friend, that case would have been thrown out. That petition would have been allowed. So but
I'm saying,
judges make their determinations, and determination based on the rule of law and what has been presented to them as evidence, isn't it?
What I'm saying, the judge
expect
can
them to be influenced by street talk or
listen. If you watched as the ICC cases were being tried, the Kenyan cases, the bench does not just sit, the judge does not just sit there and listen to you. They even interrogate you. They ask you, how about this? They ask the prosecutor, Ocampo, they ask the lawyers representing Uhuru Kenyatta. They keep asking them questions. They keep interrogating them. They keep giving them propositions. That's what I'm saying. We must change the way we run our courts. So this is radical. It's not the normal way of looking at justice in the court. It must change. The judge must be active, actively involved. If you have ever gone to a small court in the villages, those counties, those magistrates, you can see the blunders, and the magistrate is just there. He even laughs, but his hands are like he's tied. We want to move away from there. So I'm saying many of the changes we'll make to fight corruption and theft will include even the way of the administration of justice.
All right, Herman, you talk of changes. In 2011, the Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission, KACC, was disbanded and replaced by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, EACC. More than the change in the name and the kind of an institution it is, has this, Evans, is there any fruit to account for this change?
Absolutely nothing. I mean, these are toothless dogs. I mean, they can't bite. Let me give you an example.
Why do you say they are toothless dogs?
And I'm giving you an example. Look at, for example, Chapter 6 of the Constitution. They could not even enforce it. Why are they telling us? Why does EACC tell people to do their corruption returns? I mean, they tell you to fill forms to verify or to qualify whether you have been engaged in corruption. The case of Kirinyaga, for example, and you remember people talking and saying that Kirinyaga is a crime scene. It's a monument of corruption. By the time the current governor was elected, people said it's a democratic right for the people of Kirinyaga to elect anybody, irrespective of the fact that there were cases that were pending. Look at the famous Kimunya phrase, I would rather die than resign. I mean, this is how ugly and how it stinks. You are implicated in corruption and you tell the whole world that you would rather die than resign. I mean, in Europe, in countries that are mature democracies, you take your own responsibility. You take responsibility. In countries where a train can just derail and it derail, a minister of transport resigns, and it's only a train that has derailed. It's come out. I mean, look at our moral standing as a nation, and I think it is high time for us as a country to ask ourselves. Which the leaders we elect, the processes that we put in place, even EACC, I mean, it will not do anything. It cannot do anything. In fact, I feel embarrassed that they took a whole clergy who was almost entering heaven to bring him to head an institution that might easily send him to hell. Because it's so embarrassing to put Wabukala in a situation like that, an awkward situation where he has seen the gates of heaven, and you divert him to go and head an institution of people who will actually tell him you have to toe the line. And that's why he's engaged in an academic exercise. He only produces annual reports.
All right, Evans, away from heaven and hell. Often resign or the pressure to resign exists every time there is a scandal. That we are in agreement. But nonetheless, is it not too simplistic to tell people to resign? I remember of a case, the NYS scandal, in which the person who was allegedly, and I use that word carefully, involved in that, resigned, citing lighter duties. That case is still pending. It's in front of a court of law, and that person is a governor.
What you need to do in Kenya is just bring 20 lawyers in court and bring the media and take the headlines and then politicize corruption. That's the simple thing you need to do. I mean, even if you steal billions of shillings here, get good 20 lawyers, the names are known. Manuara can tell you the lawyers, if you bring in court, if you engage in corruption, you will get headlines and walk free. I mean, you don't need to go and pick some lawyer from the back street of Moy Avenue. Go and bring lawyers who have the names that we know, and you will see how you will walk free. That is how we have stage managed corruption. There's nothing else you need to do in this country. And that's why you will see whether it's governors or whether it is about who is your lawyer. And we need to interrogate ourselves.
All right.
Why are we bringing these big lawyers? In fact, let me tell you something. There are lawyers who are very known. There are lawyers who are very known to be the first people, even maybe on pro bono, to represent corrupt people in court, because that then makes their names. It's a way of trying to make their names.
All right, Evans, you have made your point. Let me bring back Hammond to the discussion. Is it a case then of not minding about who the judge is, the outcome of that case in a court of law, and rather having the best of lawyers to represent you? All right, keep talking to us. You as the viewer, your voice matters. Send us a message on 22047. The hashtag to use, Pundits Night. Someone says, considering the saying, it's hard to find your lost goat if you look at it assisted by the one who ate it. Tracing COVID-19 billions is hard. Someone else is asking, I'm really wondering whether there is a law prohibiting general election campaigns before the appropriate time. Keep talking to us. Send us a message on 22047. The hashtag to use is Pundits Night. Let me bring back Evans to the discussion. Evans, you paint a picture of no worry in as far as the judge who will make the determination of a case is concerned, but rather have a worry, have the best of lawyer and lawyers to represent you. Is it so?
You lost me.
All right, Haman, I wasn't hearing you, but I suppose I can now.
Can you hear? Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
I was saying it is only our thieves who will help us to sort out theft. If they come to the realization that in order for them to enjoy what they have stolen, up to their grandchildren and great-grandchildren, they must put an end to theft. They must stop further plundering. Look at what this COVID billionaire thing has brought to the country. That kind of thing can even bring down government. At the time at which that theft is happening, where it is happening, how it is happening, the state in which Kenyans are, it is so insensitive. So if the billionaire thieves will be content with what they have and they stop stealing, they will be saving themselves and saving the country.
But Haman, we both know it's not only the billionaires who steal in this country, isn't it? There are people who...
Let's leave
it's not only them. You're pointing fingers.
Let's deal with the billionaires and a few millionaires. These days, a man doesn't steal $1 million in this country. These days is a billion. Anybody who steals less than $1 billion is not a man. Men steal billions in this country. Millions have been left for boys and girls. Men steal billions in this country. So what I'm saying is, they ought to know. And this I am really very passionate about, and I'm saying from the bottom of my heart, because I love this country. If they do not stop stealing, the country is getting to a point where it will take it no more. President Obama, when he was in Kenya, said, when you drive that big car in Nairobi, in the streets of Nairobi, don't think Kenyans are stupid. They know you've stolen money to buy that car. That's what Obama said. The country is getting to a point where it will take this no more. Look at the reaction against those COVID billionaires. One more, 2, 3, 4, 5 more scandals of this nature can bring down the government. So I'm saying our thieves should realize enough is enough. Time has come for them to stop their bad ways, because they'll plunge the country into chaos. And when the country goes down, it is those who live in comfortable places who suffer most. Go to Uganda and see those who own the houses on the hill. They disappear, those houses, when normalcy returned. They do not belong to the people who put up those houses. I tell billionaires, and okay, let's include millionaires. Look at how strategically Kibra is next to Langata and the Karen. Look at how Kawangware is strategically next to Karen, to Lavington. Did you see that arrangement? Look at Roresho and that Kibarage slums. Look at Madera and the what do you call it? The big Mudaiga. You see how they are strategically together?
And Haman, just
side by side.
Haman, just for purpose of curiosity, do you see any correlation in that arrangement?
That's God's way of doing things. He's showing you it is just one step from where you are to the next place. From the comfort of Lavington to the suffering of the people in Kawangware, there's just one step. And that's why whenever there's chaos in a country, those who suffer most are those who are up. The people in Kibra are already down. They can't go lower than where they are. You get it? So the thieves must stop stealing, because it has gotten to a point where there is no more room for stealing. That's what I'm saying. And it is them who will help us.
All right,
deal with corruption.
All right, Haman, you have made your point. You say that thieves must stop stealing. Evans, listen to what President Uhuru Kenyatta said in June 2019. He said, and I quote, "The war against corruption is a war we are undertaking with no joy, but one that will continue with no reluctance. I will not stop until the house we inherited from our forefathers has been swept clean. Then the plenty within our borders can be secured for current and future generations, end of quote." What will it take to clean that house, Evans, in your own view?
With due respect to the president, is that the president is also under siege. I think if you look at the levels of corruption in this country, and I said in the beginning, is that the institutionalization of corruption in virtually every sector of government. There's no government department that you will touch that does not have the footprint, the fingerprints of corruption. Mm-hmm. And then that then summarizes it. It shows you that how the president under siege. I think we need to be very honest to ourselves, is that the president needs to take full responsibility and crack the whip. And that begins with government officials implicated in corruption. He needs to deal with them viciously. Because if he doesn't deal with them viciously, then it is seen like this is actually the trend. Look, what used to happen and what happens. I think you will agree with me, you know one or two, the so-called entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. Who are the entrepreneurs? Most of them are proxies to people in government. And I'll be very honest with you, most of them are proxies to people in government. The tenders they hold or whatever they are doing with government, it means that they have a name or two of a senior person in government. And this is where we get it wrong. And I think the president needs to be very clear. I think we need to have, and I would think Haman would agree with me, is that the way we are having a COVID summit, we need to have a proper corruption summit. A summit where we will speak openly and not only looking at the levels of corruption, but looking at the impacts of corruption. The problem is we do not assess and we do not examine the effects of corruption to the social fabric of our society. We do not know how corruption has led to lack of medicine in certain hospital, how corruption has led to lack of unemployment. These are the things we need to sit and examine and see.
Evans, you say of a summit. There was one last year that brought the executive led by the president, the lawmakers of the country, the judiciary headed by the Chief Justice, the Director of Public Prosecutions, DCI. These are summits that are there. These are at least and at best talks that are there.
That one was, it was a forum where annual reports are being presented. I can tell you, to be very honest, and I was saying, when ESCC brings an annual report at the end of the day to show how they have spent their money, they're not telling us about how many people are in prison because of corruption. And most of these people get themselves out. And I'll be very honest with you, is that we are not dealing with corruption the way other countries. Look at the president of Indonesia, for example, the DJ, how he dealt with corruption the first time he entered. He was able to take senior government officials who own businesses and ensure that those businesses have been repossessed. And government, and you either choose to be in government, you should not be in government and run an enterprise. Mm-hmm. You're either working for yourself or you're working for the government. You see, so, and virtually everybody in this government, whether you are a minister, there's no single minister, let's be honest, who does not have an enterprise or a business outside there. Look, for example, even our presidential candidates, I don't know all of them, but the ones I know, mm-hmm. each one of them has a private business, and each one of them has been implicated in corruption. Look at the Mays saga. Look at Weston and any other corruption. Mm-hmm. Everybody. And I think we need to start by ensuring that the crop of leaders that we intend to elect or we intend to bring into leadership are actually clean. Because we cannot allow people who have corruption, they're tainted with corruption, and we do not actually enforce Chapter 6 of our Constitution, mm-hmm. and we say that we're going to have a future country where we are going to elect leaders who have been implicated in corruption. We are going to elect them to lead us. How do we expect them then to deal with corruption? Yet they know they are actually the beneficiaries of corruption.
All right, Evans. I understand we are out of time. Nonetheless, one final question to Haman. Then, is it possible for any government or even this government to defeat and fight corruption properly? Herman, in less than 30 seconds.
The idea is, truth be told, the leaders are a part and parcel of the whole mess. To expect them to sort out the mess is to be childish in your outlook. That's why I'm saying, if I was the president, or if I were the president, I would say maybe those who have stolen, let it end there. I will make it so difficult to steal, and so painful if you steal, that going forward, stealing will be a thing of the past. We will also repossess a few of the low-hanging fruits. ADC farms that were stolen, we know them. Those very obvious government assets that people took, will bring back, also as a warning to people. But then we will forget about prosecuting people, because whom will you prosecute and who will you not prosecute? That's why people are saying, Abu Bakari, when you arrest somebody, they say it is political. It is political, yes, because everybody is a thief. How did you single out Obado? How did you get out Weluke alone? How do you get out one or two others? Where are the other governors? Everybody is a thief. So if we made stealing difficult, if not impossible, then we will be moving into the future. My cry is, let's make stealing difficult. It must be with the mindset of the leaders and the president that those who have stolen, let's stop there.
And Herman,
going forward, my friend, you try.
Herman, as we finalize, when you say everyone is a thief, you mean anyone involved in corruption, or a judgment that everyone is a thief?
In English, when you say everyone, it doesn't mean you count one up to 47 million Kenyans. It simply means the vast majority of people are thieves. That's what it means in English. That we are saying
that
it is hardly possible to get...
Fair enough. That may be what it means in English, and no debate to that. But that is not what it means in real sense, isn't it? Thieves are the ones who steal. If one has not stolen, they are not a thief.
In real sense, you see, in law, you are not a thief unless you have been proved through a court of law. That's the only time you are a thief. Is that right? But you and I know so and so could have stolen. So we are saying, from a common sense perspective, that there are more thieves than have been arraigned before court, much less proved guilty. You see what I'm saying?
But at the end of the day,
it's not a bad country where everybody steals.
But at the end of the day, it's not everybody who steals, irrespective of.
It is not for 7 million Kenyans. It's not mathematical. It is simple to say that no, please let me say this, Abu Bakari. It is a disturbing number. A disturbing number of Kenyans are thieves. It is worrying.
Fair enough that you have moved from everybody to a disturbing number, and I suppose that
everybody meant a disturbing number. Yeah, a worrying number.
All right, fair enough that you have reduced the number from everybody to quite specific.
Okay, yeah.
Herman Manyora, resident analyst, and Evans Wafula, political analyst. Thank you, gentlemen, for making time for us tonight on Pundits Night.
Thank you. Thank you, Abu Bakari.
All right, keep talking to us. You as the viewer, of course, your voice and opinion matters. Talk to us on 22047, the hashtag to you. On 2047, someone who was not mentioned, his or her name says, was a victim of NYS Scandal 1. It will be better if you told us your name and where you're watching from. Nonetheless, Rav Havison says, watching from Lesos in Nandi County. Seth Chambamba says, watching from the lakeside land of Luanda Magere. That brings us to the end of tonight's edition of Pundits Night. On behalf of the entire team that made this production possible, bye for now. Night of all nights. Enjoy the rest of our programs.
To receive breaking news alerts SMS the word news to 20376.
Kila siku ya Jumatano tunazungumza, tunaulizana na tunajuzana masuala ibuka ya kisiasa.
He is not in Kirinyaga.
Maisha yangu ni huru na watu wangu wanyali.
Tulivunja vyama vya URP na TN.